Well, hey everyone, Joe Sangle with Fully Funded Life here, and I am fired up about what's getting ready to happen here in this webinar, this event, this podcast, if you're listening to it that way. You know, we are passionate about helping you, yes, you, live a fully funded life. And we define a fully funded life, in case this is one of the first times you've heard us share it, because we share it every time. A fully funded life is being able to do exactly what you've been put on earth to do, regardless of its cost or the income it might generate. And we know that for many people, part of their fully funded life, part of their calling is to become entrepreneurs or business owners. Maybe they own a franchise. And one of the largest challenges for people that go into business or start a business is most times they are passionate about the work, and then they realize that there's a huge financial component to it. And they find themselves buried in spreadsheets, income statements. They really don't know what it means. If they're anything like my dad, when he built homes, when the pile got about 4 inches deep of receipts on his dash of his truck, he would bring them in and throw them at mom and say, here's about 4 months worth, get these in order. And she quickly fired herself from that. And so none of the data was right now relevant. It was like a season old, and it's hard to get it in order. And the biggest thing is it was always looking backwards. And so I have a friend that I met about 10 years ago, a little over that, and he was on staff running the finances of a church that was really growing. And he had a call to go into business and ended up running the finances of a very large organization. You'll hear more about that in a minute. And then this calling just would not go away, and that is to help people just like you. If you're a business owner, if you're thinking about starting a business, if you know somebody or you're married to somebody who runs a business, you're going to want to listen into this, and you're going to want to share this with them. And so I want to welcome my special guest, Jim Emmerich, to the podcast. Hey, welcome to the podcast.
Joe, thanks so much for having me, man. I am fired up likewise to be here with you. This is awesome.
So, hey, man, I love the name of your organization. The name of your organization is Backbone CFO.
Yes,
So
sir.
Backbone Chief Financial Officer. Tell us a little bit about how that name came to be.
Yeah, it's so I can't take credit for the name, to be completely honest with you. So I was working with a friend of mine who was helping me out, kind of get the marketing and the branding. You know, I'm not creative at all by any stretch. And he kind of came up with it, but we were chatting, and this is how it kind of came about. We were talking about our clients. And at the end of the day, I would tell you and tell anyone I work with, small businesses, as you know, are the backbone of our economy here in the U.S. And, you know, I'm just not creative. I was like, what if we just did Backbone, right? What if we just did Backbone CFO? And it stuck. It stuck, Joe. But I think at the end of the day, it resonates with our clients. You know, one of our core values is empathy. And for me, that means it's connecting with small business owners, and hey, they're the backbone. So that's where it came from.
I love it. That's a great name. I haven't read that story before, even in our chats preparing for this. So I love that. Yeah. You know, you think about it, small business is indeed the backbone of any great economy. Mm-hmm. And the financial side of it is the backbone of the small business. So I guess it makes you the backbone to the backbone. I think that's awesome.
I'll take it.
There we go.
Yeah.
And so here's what I want everybody to do. I really want you to listen to every word that's shared in this. I don't often say that. You know that if you've listened to the podcast or watched webinars. But at the very end of this, Jim has something that he really wants to put in your hands. It's a great free tool. It's one that I use every day in the operation of all of our businesses, and I really want you to stick through to the end. And so, you know, I really want to start out by having you share, you know, briefly a little bit about your background. How did you end up here?
Yeah, it's great. Well, you kind of stole some of that story. I started out my career in banking. And I tell people all the time, just to get a little laugh, it was the worst job of my entire life. I'm a pretty motivated and passionate person, but I remember one summer I was working at a large bank. It was a top 5 U.S. bank in, you know, back office. I fell asleep, Joe. I literally woke
up. Literally?
literally, like I felt like real quick dozed off, but I fell asleep, and I remember waking up saying, "Oh my gosh!" Like I had just gotten a promotion. I was at entry-level management. Things kind of looked good on paper, but I just knew that, man, this is not what I am called to do. This is way too boring. I'm not making an impact. And the Lord blessed me. He got me out of there. And I'll tell you what, it was literally an answered prayer, because I went and worked for my church, the church that my wife and I were already attending. The church is called True North. It's in South Jersey. And I'll tell you what, we were small at the time, a mobile church, one campus. It was the best career decision that I had ever made up until this point. And I'll tell you why. Like, at the end of the day, I was 22 years old, I believe, when I started there. And I got the next 4 years of being taught how to be a leader. And to me, people miss out on that. They come out of college, or they go through college, and they think they want to learn a skill or a craft, but they never learn how to lead. I got to learn how to lead first, and then develop my skill set along with that. And that just made my career, in my opinion, very unique. But it's also helped me excel. So that was,
and if you know the Eisenhart family at True North Church, you talk about leader after leader after leader, but there's also 100%. This entrepreneurial current. So it's no surprise that they started a church, right?
That's right. That's right.
So you got training on the operation of the finances of an organization that's rapidly growing.
Yep.
Lots of things demanding resources.
Yep.
You know, absolutely. To use a phrase from Dave Ramsey, 2 month at the end of the money, right? And you're trying to keep things between the ditches, but you want to grow. There's lots of things competing.
Absolutely.
All of them exciting, all of them enticing. Does that sound a little bit like people starting small businesses too?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You know, I tell people all the time, man, like, small business to me is the ultimate roller coaster. There's the biggest highs and the deepest lows. And the reality is that that's what makes small business finance maybe more challenging than anything else is, hey, the resources are limited, which makes capitalism a lot of fun, but they are limited. You know what? The oversight, especially when companies are trying to grow, is intense. It can be intense. But you know what? It makes a lot of fun. So I think that provides a lot of opportunity. But Joe, here's what's interesting. Do you know the number one cause of death in all small business?
I would say stress.
Cash flow stress. The number one cause of death in the United States for all small business, and it's reported by multiple sites. You can Google this. 82% of small business owners say cause of death is cash flow. And for me, that is such a shame, because I see so many opportunities to provide value, right, to the marketplace. But cash flow is the thing holding it back. It's not that there's not a market. It's not that the product or service isn't good. It's not that your marketing or advertising isn't there. It's cash flow.
And
that is, I am on a mission, Joe, to make that not a reality, right?
That's awesome. Yes. So I've got to share 3 notes that I've already got here that I just side notes that we need to share with all of the people watching this, listening. Number 1, if you fall asleep on the job, it might be an indicator you're not in the middle of your passion or calling. Number 1, just a little side note.
Yes.
Second thing is, you mentioned that empathy is a core value.
Yes.
We're going to come back to that. I think that is great.
Yeah.
Small business owners, wouldn't you want somebody who's dealing with you financially to have some empathy? And the second thing, or the third thing is, you said that limited resources is fun.
Yeah.
I would add to it, it also fosters innovation, but fun and innovation does not come without its fair share of stress.
That's right.
So that's really good. So, you have started this organization to manage cash flow, to manage what's known as working capital.
Yep. The
reason I'm so compelled to it is we met when I first came to True North Church 11, 12 years ago. And, I immediately took note that everything happening behind the scenes was like another level. Like, it was being run at a level that was maybe 4 or 5x what the size of the organization was at the time. And I immediately knew there's great opportunity here because they're not thinking just today, they're thinking for the future. And you're a big part of that.
Yep.
And it connected to me because 11, 12 years ago, I was only 5 or 6 years into my entrepreneurial journey. And I had recently went through this issue where I teach personal finances for a living. I teach budgeting for a living. I teach, every dollar a name, income minus outgo equals exactly zero. But I had this odd thing happen that when it came to my business side, I did not like the budgeting side anymore because it consumed so much of my time. It took me away from actually living out my calling. And so I had went and shoulder tapped a 22-year-old, sounds very similar, and he had gotten a financial management degree from Clemson, and I hired him part-time to just help ship books and keep order in the office.
Yep.
And he saw me over there using Microsoft money. Do not make fun of me. I was using Microsoft money, and I'm over there trying to type all this stuff in with my accompanying Pigpen style number of spreadsheets. It was like if every dot around Pigpen in the Charles Schultz Peanuts cartoon is a spreadsheet, I had about that many spreadsheets, managing inventory, managing sales at each event, managing my sales taxes and use taxes I'm going to have to file at the end of the year. And he said, he stood up over the cubicle. I had 2 cubicles I got for free. And he looked over and said, hey, if you would like, I would love to do that. I'm like, there's no way you would love to do this. He's like, no, I would love to do this. And I learned, business leader, I want you to hear me on this. There are people who love doing what you hate doing. And that day, Matt Sands on my team became CFO. Now, he didn't get the title until 5 years later and helped me buy 3 businesses, and we had grown this thing. But he became CFO really that day because it allowed me to turn my attention to running the business. And so that's exactly what you guys do, Jim. And so I just wanted you to speak to senior leaders. Let me just tell you the audience that's listening. The audience that's listening are small business owners. They're people who are thinking about starting a small business. They're church leaders. Their church has been growing. Their business has been growing. And they've come to this rub point where the administrative side of the business, the financial side of it, has become unwieldy. And they know they need help, but the finances are not there to go afford a CFO. If you go to salary.com and find out what a CFO gets paid, it's not in the cash flow. They don't need a cash flow plan to know that. Okay? So before we talk about exactly how you help, I want you to speak to these senior leaders and share with them, 3 or 4 things that they should expect from a CFO type of person. The Matt Sams for me, what you are for all the businesses you're supporting.
Sure. Yeah. And before I even answer that, I just want to piggyback off what you said. There's a great book that really transformed my life. It's a book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. And if you haven't read it, it's an absolute must. And here's I tell people all the time when it comes to finance, but honestly, any aspect of business or even life, I think this is a life principle where if you don't have capacity, you don't have capability, or you don't have passion for something, that is okay, because guess what? Somebody else does. And if you can just recognize that as an opportunity and not something that's a detriment, you can really go after something and still achieve your plans, hopes, and dreams, and probably expedite the process and allow it to be a lot more pain-free if you just kind of grasp hold of that concept. Again, we're talking finance, but that you apply that to any aspect of your life, fitness, finances, personal finances, business, whatever. It's just true. So, but just side note, and I wanted to say that, but then I'll answer your question. So, if I'm talking to a senior leader and they're kind of contemplating this, hey, what should I be looking for in a CFO? And I'm so glad that you mentioned your story with Matt. He may have become the CFO but not had the title. I think the reality is that the title's meaningless, to be honest. It's more about the quality and the characteristics of the person that you're entrusting something to.
Exactly.
So for me, the number one attribute to, I'll call it a CFO, fractional CFO, full-time CFO, somebody managing your finances at a high level needs to be a coach. Somebody who's really able to and really takes the mantle of inspiring, motivating. But here's the deal, creating understanding around this part where maybe you don't, as a business owner, have the capacity or capability, past experience, right? A coach can really come in and create that for you, create that for your business, right? Here's the thing, leading into perspective. I mean, I tell people all the time, like, at the end of the day, spreadsheets are great. We can put in systems and processes and all this stuff, but perspective from past experience is invaluable. And you know what? The reality is that CFOs have, especially if you actually went through an organization, you had the title. Matt Sams is a great example. He went through multiple acquisitions. He saw what that took. He saw the ups and downs, the pains, the wins and the losses, right? That perspective is extremely valuable because a good CFO will, now we can leverage that, right? So the small business owner that we're working with, hey, maybe we can avoid some of those pitfalls because I've been through that. I've seen that happen, maybe in my own business or another one. So I would say the first attribute is a coach.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you think about what a coach does, I mean, we can all think of our favorite coaches, both well-known and the ones that coached us when we were young.
Yep.
But we all had good coaches. We also had average coaches, and we also had ones that we did not like.
Yep.
And we look back on them, and we still don't like them. So it's pretty sure we didn't like them. They were bad for us.
Yeah.
But, you know, what does a coach do? They teach, they cheerlead, they challenge.
Yep.
They're an ultimate truth teller. Yeah. If you think about that, that's what you're doing as a CFO.
That's right.
And if I'm in the seat of the business leader, what I always say this, you know, there's words that you use to describe various employees or different positions. I said if I had a one word answer that described my financial person was creative, I'm immediately panicking. I don't want creative finances. I want somebody who is a truth teller. They go seek solutions. They give me 3 or 4 options, and they encourage me on which one to take and the financial aspects of it.
Yeah.
But they also recognize that not every decision is purely financial.
That's right.
And so they will follow the leader. Yeah. But you do need to know, if you constantly keep running them out of cash, eventually the CFO will run away. They're not going to put up with, you know, financial insolvency all the time, because they carry this mantle. They are a fellow carrier of the stress with you as a business leader, helping you get to where you're going.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, one of those, I think, critical components of a CFO, I think this also ties back to being a coach, but something that we stress a lot, getting our business owners to communicate what their goals are. You know, Joe, I've learned from you, plans, hopes, and dreams are critical, even in personal finance, right? To determine if we're making a budget, how do we allocate resources, right? To ultimately fulfill our God-given purpose, right? And this is not a static thing. It's not something that's only short-term. Likewise, in business owners have a call in their life. They have a purpose. They have goals. They have plans and dreams. A CFO needs to be able to recognize that, pull it out of them. Sometimes it's not easy, but making sure that we understand that. So now when we're making data-driven decisions, we're making that, connecting it back to the goal, right? We know the end in mind. And I think that's really critical for a CFO to be able to recognize, yes, we want to be a truth teller, be able to deliver the bad news when it's necessary, but all of it in context of what the plans, hopes, and dreams of the business owner are.
Absolutely. And, you know, when I hear that, that's exactly what has helped our organizations not only survive, but thrive through COVID. It's what's allowed us to survive and thrive through the loss of critical employees, right? It's just what's allowed us to survive and thrive through market dynamics that changed. So I love all of that.